Good afternoon. My name is Justin Viller with the Committee of 70. We are very excited to be back with our next edition. We're coming down to it. Just a few more days left until the election next Tuesday, May 20th. Today, we are very excited to be joined by Judge Mackenzie Smith, who is running for the Chester County Court of Common Pleas. Sorry for my mind blank. We've been doing a lot of these. Chester County Court of Common Pleas. She'll be interviewed by Buchholz Fellow from the Committee of 70, Lauren Tilghman. So, Judge Smith, Lauren, thank you both very much for being here, and I will turn it over to you both.
Thanks, Justin. Judge Smith, thank you so much for being willing to be interviewed today. We're really happy to have you. Um, so just to kick us off, can you just briefly tell us a little bit about your background, your education, and your experience?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me during a severe thunderstorm notwithstanding. So we're going to try to get through this with power. Yeah, so I am currently, I serve on the Chester County Court of Common Pleas. I was appointed back in February by Governor Shapiro to fill a vacancy. And so I have to run for a full term now. I graduated from Temple Law School in 2009. And from there went to a big law firm in Center City in commercial litigation. So those types of, high value business disputes. But I really kind of knew even back then that my heart was in public service. So I became a child advocate in the city of Philadelphia, and I volunteered with the Philadelphia VIP pro bono program, as well as the Eastern District of PA Prisoner Civil Rights Program, really to get my feet wet in public service. A couple years later, I was at the Chester County District Attorney's Office, where I fell in love with public service in Chester County specifically. I grew up here, and I lived here even through law school. So I just from that moment in 2012 knew that I wanted to come back full time, and I've kind of worked my way back ever since. And in 2021, my local judge position, which there's only one for each district of the local judges, was up for an election. And I thought, if not now, when? So I ran for that local judge position. I was lucky enough to win in 2021, and then have been serving as a judge here in Chester County ever since.
That's awesome. That's great. So actually, just to take a step back a little bit, you talked about just being passionate about advocacy work. So why was it that you decided to pursue law to participate in advocacy work?
you know, even when you're a kid, sometimes people say, "Oh, you should be this when you grow up, or you should be that when you grow up." So I was always a very loquacious person. Really couldn't keep my mouth shut ever since I could talk. So everyone always told me, you should be a lawyer, you should go to law school, and it never really sunk in until high school when I did mock trial.
Mm,
And it was a toxic tort case, and it was, kind of like an Aaron Brockovich type case that we were given, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. I knew even in the mock courtroom, like, this is where I want to be. Just that adrenaline rush of presenting evidence and cross-examining a witness really fired me up, and it would be one of those things which I still experience when I go to work now, where I look up and 3 hours have gone by. I'm in a zone. I'm not bored. And I tell my kids now, whatever it is, find that thing, because when you have a career and you're going to be doing the same thing for decades and decades, you want something like that you're really passionate about. And it happens to me even now all the time, where I look up and it's the end of the workday and I say, where did the time go? I'm never bored.
that's awesome. That's great. And that's so important. Everyone should have a job and be in a position that they're passionate about. It's really important. So actually, let's talk a little bit more about your role in the Chester County Court of Common Pleas. So what can you give us a basic understanding of what the Court of Common Pleas does and the cases that you usually support and serve on?
Absolutely. And I think this is a great question because, especially here in Pennsylvania, we really like to use old timey words for things. I guess because we're one of the OG states, we just have a lot of, labels and words that we roll off the tongue, but we really don't know what they mean. So the Court of Common Pleas is the general trial level court here in Pennsylvania. So it's what's called a court of general jurisdiction, which means it hears all types of cases and controversies that arise here in Chester County. So if you get that jury summons for jury duty, you're coming to me.
Yeah.
So we hear all trials in criminal cases that are charged in Chester County. We hear civil cases. So that would be like a business dispute or something involving an allegation about money. We hear all custody and divorce cases. So that would be in family law. And then we're also the orphans court, which is another old timey word because it has nothing to do with orphans. I actually don't even know why it's called orphans court, but that would be like trusts and estate litigation. So if someone, has a will contest that needs to be decided by a judge, that would also come to us. So we're basically your standard trial court. We find the facts, and then if the case progresses, it would go up to the appellate courts, which would be statewide courts.
Awesome. Thank you. So in Chester County, what would you say are the most prevalent cases that you usually hear?
Yeah, so that's another good question because you would think that it would be criminal, just based on what's in the news and what the numbers are. But if you look at, and I think the most recent data through AOPC, which is the Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts, so that's the Harrisburg-based Pennsylvania judiciary as a whole, and they have a wonderful website with all kinds of statistics if you're interested in what the courts are doing, where you can look at these numbers. And I think the most recent is from a couple years ago, but actually by filings, we have more civil cases than anything else. Now, most of those don't go to trial. So with the criminal cases, a higher percentage of them, even though the vast majority even of criminal cases don't go to trial, but I think a higher percentage do. So, and they're obviously much more newsworthy usually, but by filings, we have a lot of civil cases. I currently sit in family court for most of my, like half of the time. And I will say we have a lot of those cases as well. So we're a very busy court currently.
That's amazing. So why were you willing to be interviewed by Committee of 70 today? What was the significance for you that you thought that this would be a great opportunity?
So one of my passions as a public servant and just honestly as a mom and as a citizen is civic education and civic engagement. I really genuinely believe that that is how we are going to rebuild trust in our institutions and really strengthen our institutions. I believe that, at its best, government exists to serve the community and to promote the common good. And in order to do that, we need to all be aware of, what our local government does, what our state and national government does, and how we can make it better, and be meaningful participants in that. And it really does take everyone. So that's what drew me, especially to Committee of 70 and the work that they all do and that you all do, is really engaging in that. And I also think, as a sitting judge, I don't get the opportunity to engage with the general public. The only time I'm allowed to do it under our rules of ethics is when I'm campaigning, which is right now. So I think it's important. It's not very common that people get the opportunity to ask judges questions about our background or why we like to do what we do. And it's meaningful to be able to answer that. And I think important. We are elected officials here in Pennsylvania, and we owe it to the community to participate when we can.
That's awesome. And thank you so much for sharing that. So within the Chester County court system, what do you think that we do really well? And what do you think that we can improve upon, just for community members, but also for those who are working in the court systems?
Another great question. We do a lot of things really well here in Chester County. We have an ethos here that really is focused on service to the public. I have worked in, 3 different departments now, all related to the judiciary. So I've worked for the district attorney. I've worked in the district courts, which are the local courts. So what you would historically refer to as a justice of the peace, and now in the Court of Common Pleas. And in all 3 areas, I can tell you, people really care about doing the right thing. We're very, very lucky here in Chester County to have public servants who want to get the job done efficiently, but also in a way that serves people the way that they need to be served. It's the government, right? Like it's a bureaucracy as well. So there are things we could do better. In my personal opinion, I think we could invest more in our human resources, and make people feel valued for the very important work that they do. I think by making our public servants feel valued, the community would also, value the work that they do more. And I don't think that's, going out on a limb to say. I think that's something that can be said in any number of contexts and jurisdictions. Another area that we do well is we have a very robust complement of treatment courts here in Chester County. So we have a mental health court, we have a drug court, and its complement a recovery court. We also have a robust veterans court program. So we do serve those communities. On the flip side, one way we could improve is that, the system can be labyrinthine. Sometimes it's difficult to figure out which number to call or who I need to speak to or whether this treatment provider takes my insurance, and just compiling all those resources and making them easier to digest by an ordinary person. I mean, I'm a judge that sits in these areas, and sometimes I don't know where to turn. So if I can't figure it out, how is someone who has no institutional knowledge of the court system supposed to figure it out? Those are difficult problems. It's something that I think every governmental entity probably faces to a certain extent. I mean, interview an IRS agent, I'm sure they would say the same thing, by orders of magnitude greater. So we do work on it. We're aware of it, but it's just one of those things that, as a governmental entity, we always need to be working to improve.
That's great. And thank you so much for your transparency on that too. Just as a lifelong Chester Countyan, it's always great and refreshing to hear that. So I think you touched on this a little bit, just about being passionate about advocacy, but what do you love most about your career? What really drives you to serve others?
So the number one thing, it's great to feel like I have a career that makes me smarter, that's intellectually stimulating, that can be, look, as a litigator before I became a judge, winning a case is like one of the greatest feelings you can ever feel, when you pour your heart and soul into something and win. And even now as a judge, when I make a ruling and I feel like, oh man, I really killed it on that one, like that, it's a great feeling. But more than anything else, I think the thing that propels me to do what I do every day is feeling like I'm doing right by my community, that I'm helping people. And again, to be completely honest, like you can't help everyone. You can't make a huge world of difference in every single case. It's just not possible. Sometimes, the facts just aren't there, or the law just doesn't support, what the litigant may want the outcome to be. But in a significant number of cases, you can really do right by people who you share a community with. Yeah. And that's an unparalleled feeling. I mean, it's very gratifying, and I'm grateful to be able to do it on a daily basis. It's, I've been in a career where, and this is not a knock on my former law firm, because it was a fantastic firm with absolutely wonderful people. For me personally, going home at the end of the day and feeling like I made a ton of money today, like that's great. Going home at the end of the day and feeling like someone's life is going to be better because of what happened in my courtroom today, there's nothing else like it. I'll do it as long as the voters will have me.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I guess we'll have some more little bit of a lighthearted talk. What's a fun fact about you that most folks don't know?
Ooh, a fun fact about me that most folks don't know. I am really passionate about yoga. I've been doing it for about 20 years before there was even social media, let alone Instagram yoga. And I try to practice at least twice a week. And I've been doing that, since college, actually, which was a really long time ago. So I will not be putting my yoga skills on display for the voters, but just it's a way that I can, it's kind of a way to engage in self-care for me. And I think that's important for anyone in public service, not just elected officials, but honestly, anyone who works in public service. It is very fulfilling, but it can be taxing as well. So I think having that outlet and that self-care is really important.
Yeah, self-care is definitely important, having that balance. I agree. So in 30 seconds, why is it important for young people to participate in the voting process and even this election itself?
Give me 30 days. I still can't even get that question. So young people, and I am going to say this as a total hypocrite, because I did not engage as much as I should have when I was younger. So when I was in college, 2 weeks after I started college, September 11th happened. So I was in college for or the beginning of the war on terror. I was a junior in college when we invaded Iraq, and there was a huge controversy around that. I remember talking to my roommates about it and kind of having those conversations, but I was not as active as I should have been. And that's one of my biggest regrets, because I had the ability to. I was just focused on other things, and that's not to say that you shouldn't be. It's really important to engage on campus when you're in school and just starting your career, and those things can be overwhelming. But I've got to say, from the flip side, from the future, from middle age, I wish I had engaged more, because I didn't realize back then how much these things affect not only my day-to-day life, but my children's and our future, and the opportunities and choices that we have. Sitting here today, I don't take any of it for granted. And what I tell people sometimes at political events and meetings, it's like democracy is kind of like marriage. Like, it's this wonderful thing that can really improve everyone's lives, but you have to work at it every single day. And that's tiring sometimes, but it's really important to do. And only when you do that can you reap the incredible rewards of it. So I would really implore everyone to participate, and there are resources to help you do that.
That's awesome. Thank you. And then is there anything else that you'd like to share with us today that I didn't ask about, whether it's related to your campaign or your career?
So I would turn it back to your last question and just, let people know I'm 42 years old. I never thought I would be able to be a judge. I didn't, I didn't realize that it's totally possible. So I would tell younger voters and people who are just starting out on their career, like, please don't limit yourself. You don't know what you're capable of. And it really just takes time and showing up every day and doing the best job that you can. And you really can achieve whatever goal you set your mind to, and really think big. Don't think, I'll just take whatever job falls in my lap. Like, life doesn't work that way. You can go out and make these things happen. And again, I never thought I would be lucky enough to serve my community in this capacity, even though I knew it was my passion. And yet here I am. I'm just an ordinary person. I am wearing UGG slippers under this screen right now. Like, I'm not different than anybody else. There's no special magic to it. It really is just starting to engage, getting out there and voting, finding a career that makes you feel passionate about what you do, and then showing up and doing it every day and trying to give the best of yourself. 20 years from now, you won't believe how far that can take you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And then finally, how can people find out more information about you and your campaign?
Yeah, so I do have a website. It's mackenzieforjudge.com. So that has ways to contact me. You can email me directly through the website. It has information about my campaign. And I also know that there are, resources in the local media. The Daily Local does a great job about keeping up with local campaigns. The League of Women Voters and Committee of 70 and Ballotpedia have resources online. And there's a website called vote411.org that allows voters to complete their own sample ballot. And one thing I like to say about voting is it's an open book test, so you can bring the answers into the polls with you and just copy them down on the Scantron sheet. You don't have to make any decisions right there if you don't want to. So any information you could need, it's out there if you look for it. And mackenzieforjudge.com if you want to learn about me specifically.
Thank you so much, Judge Smith. We really appreciate you just sharing, so much about yourself personally and professionally. And I'm wishing you all the best in the upcoming election.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you very much to both of you, Your Honor. Thank you for being here. Lauren, wonderful job. Thank you. As was mentioned before, Tuesday, May 20th is the election, so we hope to see you all at the polls. Best of luck, Judge Smith. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. See you on Tuesday.
Yeah.